Imagine this, it's your wedding day. The moment you've waited for all your life. But just as you're about to celebrate, your sister, the one who stole your fiancé years before, shows up, uninvited, ready to steal the spotlight one last time. That's exactly what happened to Hailey, a woman who spent years living in the shadow of her family's golden child, Sophia. From childhood neglect to college betrayals, and even her own engagement destroyed by her sister's schemes. Hailey has endured it all, but today, as her sister crashes her wedding, Hailey has a surprise of her own. When all eyes turn her way, she's ready to expose the truth. If you're ready for a story packed with family betrayal, jaw-dropping karma, and a revenge that leaves everyone speechless, stay tuned, because this one's unforgettable. Welcome to the Payback Vault, your go-to hub for revenge stories, epic karma, and jaw-dropping payback. Today, I'll tell you a story about betrayal, revenge, and what happens when family loyalty goes way too far. I still remember my sister's smug face at my wedding, standing up to give us toast she was never invited to make. She hinted at my past relationships, practically gloating about every mistake I'd ever made. That was when I knew it was time for me to take a stand. You see, my sister Sophia had always been the golden child, and I was the quiet one, always overlooked, and constantly compared to her. From my earliest memory, my mom would say, "Why can't you be more like Sophia?" Every family gathering was the same, Sophia's jokes and stories, and me in the corner, quietly reading, left out. It was more than just words. Sophia got the best of everything. When she started ballet, she got the designer tutu, the best shoes, and private lessons. But when I wanted to join band class, I got a secondhand flute mom found on some discount site. It was like she wanted me to know that I'd never be as important as Sophia. One Christmas, when I was 12, I finally saved up hope that maybe things would be different. I needed a laptop for school, so I asked for one. Instead, I unwrapped a pile of books and clothes, while Sophia, just 10 years old, got a brand new iPhone. She needs it to keep up with her friends, Mom said, brushing off my complaints, as if I wasn't trying to keep up with anything, especially the family's high expectations. The only person who seemed to care about me, who really saw me for who I was my grandmother, Nana Rose. My family took vacations without me every summer, but Nana would invite me to stay with her, saying, "Their loss, sweetheart. You and I will have our own adventure." Those summers with her were the happiest times of my childhood, baking pies, hearing her stories, and finally feeling like I mattered to someone. By the time I was 15, I'd all but given up on my parents' approval. I threw myself into my studies, joining every academic club and competition I could find, but even that wasn't enough. One night, I overheard my parents talking about college funding. My dad said, "We can only afford to send one of them." My mom replied, "Sophia's got real potential in drama. Hailey's smart, she'll figure something out." And that was that. They decided to fund Sophia's education while I was left to figure it out. I was heartbroken, but I used that pain as fuel. I worked every late night, signed up for every scholarship, and pushed myself until I finally got a full-ride scholarship to my state's top business school. My parents barely even noticed. They were too busy helping Sophia get ready for her big performance at her high school theater. But college was the break I needed. Finally, I was away from them, away from Sophia's shadow. I made new friends who actually valued me, and I met someone who treated me like I was more than a backup. His name was Adam. We met through mutual friends, and he was everything I'd been missing. He was kind, he listened, and he actually cared about my dreams. For a moment, I thought maybe my family would finally be proud of me, but just as my life was coming together, Sophia announced she was getting married. Sophia's wedding was everything you'd expect, extravagant, over the top, like something out of a magazine. I almost didn't go, but Adam convinced me, saying it would look worse if I didn't attend. When I arrived, she greeted me with her usual smug smile, saying, "I always knew I'd be the first one down the aisle," as if my life was some kind of competition she'd already won. Her wedding was hard to sit through, but I did it for the sake of keeping the peace. A year later, Adam proposed, and for the first time, I felt like I was going to have my own family, one that truly cared about me. When I called my mom to share the news, her reaction was lukewarm at best. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said. But of course, Sophia showed up at our engagement dinner, uninvited, with that same smug look. "Finally found someone willing to marry you, huh?" she sneered. I tried to brush it off, for Adam's sake, but that night, she crossed a line I never thought she would. It was our engagement party at my parents' house, and everyone was having a great time. Then I noticed Adam was missing. I looked everywhere until I finally ended up outside my old bedroom, and that's when I heard something that made my stomach turn. I opened the door, and there they were, Adam and Sophia, tangled in the sheets of my own childhood bed. My heart shattered as Adam scrambled to his feet, stammering excuses, and Sophia didn't even bother covering herself. She just looked at me, and with that same smug smile, said, "I'm the better sister, Hailey, always have been, always will be." I was so furious I wanted to scream, but before I could, my mom burst into the room. She looked at the scene and, instead of comforting me, she whispered, "Hailey, please, don't say anything. Think about what this would do to the family." Even in that moment, with my heart breaking, their only thought was protecting Sophia. I walked out without a word, feeling numb. Adam called, begged, tried to explain, but I was done. I packed all his things, rented a storage unit, and dropped everything off there with the access code. Then I blocked him, my family, everyone. That night, for the first time, I realized my family would never see me as more than the backup. 3 years later, my life looked completely different. I'd thrown myself into my work, and one evening at a local coffee shop, I bumped into a man named Michael. I hesitated to get close, but he was different, kind, patient, and for once, I didn't have to compete for anyone's attention. Slowly, we started dating, and 2 years later, he proposed. It was a quiet moment, just us, no flashy ring, no fanfare, and that was exactly what I wanted. Michael's family became the one I'd always wished for. His mom took me wedding dress shopping, his dad welcomed me with open arms, and his sister became the best friend I'd never had growing up. I'd never felt so supported in my life. I invited my grandmother, my aunts, and my cousins, but when it came to my parents, I was hesitant. Finally, I called my mom and invited her, making it clear Sophia was not welcome. But on my wedding day, there she was, standing right next to my mom, visibly pregnant, with that same smug smile. My mom just shrugged, saying, "Hailey, she's your sister, it's time to forgive." I couldn't believe it, but I wasn't going to let her ruin my day. The ceremony went smoothly, and we made it to the reception. Then, during the toasts, my mom got up, barely mentioned me or Michael, but went on and on about Sophia and her firsts. Then Sophia stood up, smoothing her dress over her belly, and called herself the maid of honor at my wedding, even though I hadn't invited her at all. I stood up, my heart pounding. "Actually, I have a story to tell," I began, my voice surprisingly calm. I told the whole room about my engagement party years before, how Sophia had betrayed me in my own bedroom. Gasps filled the hall, and Sophia's husband, who was sitting next to her, hailed as he turned to her. "Is this true?" he asked. Sophia stammered, but her face told him everything he needed to know. I looked at my mother, who was frozen in horror. "You ruined everything, Hailey," she screamed. But for once, I wasn't going to listen to her. "No, Mom, you ruined everything every time you chose her over me. This is just the truth catching up with all of you." Michael took my hand, and his family applauded as my parents stormed out. It was the first time I felt free from them. After the wedding, Sophia's life fell apart. Her husband filed for divorce, and a DNA test revealed that her baby wasn't his. My parents even had to sell their vacation home to cover her legal costs. Meanwhile, I was finally happy, surrounded by people who loved me for who I was. 3 years later, Michael and I are expecting our first child. I have a family who loves me, and I know this child will grow up in a home where they're valued for who they are. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's living well, and that's exactly what I'm doing. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and share. And if you're hooked on tales of betrayal and unexpected twists, check out our Betrayal and Payback, Twists You Won't See Coming playlist. Thanks for watching the Payback Vault.